and I'm going live now.
You can go ahead, Dan.
Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are glad you could join us this morning for Coffee and Conversations. We have a great topic today, I think one that is valid for all business owners, and we're going to introduce Brandon Owens when it's time. And he's going to be talking about, whether you're looking at buying a business or selling a business, some tips that you should have. So really looking forward to his presentation on that. So you know who I am. Let me tell you the protocol. We are on Zoom, so you can ask questions of the speaker. You can either put them in the chat box, or I'm sure Brandon's okay if you just want to interrupt him and ask a question. If you're on Facebook Live, you type the question in, and I think, Tiffany, you're going to repeat it to Brandon so we can get it answered for you. So we're going to do self-introductions here, and then we're going to get started. So Laura, why don't you go first?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. Glad to have you with us today. Please tell me who you are and what company you're with. Gino, we will start with you.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gino McGowan. I am the new Director of Member Relations at the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Happy to be here. I'm all of, about 7 days now, so I think I'll keep on saying that till I get to double figures. But anyway, just happy to be here, guys, and looking to learn some things.
Excited to have you with us. Sandy.
Morning, Sandy Kusnoff with Frank's Glass. I apologize. I have laryngitis.
Oh, no. So sorry to hear that. If you have any questions, just type them in the chat. We can repeat them for you. Tiffany, as you take a drink, so sorry.
I think that's okay. I'm Tiffany Grubb, Director of Marketing at the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
Wonderful. Brandon, I will let you introduce yourself and Nikki.
You forgot Nikki.
Well, she's with Brandon.
Right. That's okay. So Brandon Owens, Nikki Owens with First Choice Business Brokers Cincinnati, and we'll do our presentation here later. You'll learn a little bit more about what we do.
So Brandon, it's all yours.
All right. How do I present off of this thing now? My present button went away.
You should have a share screen.
Not appearing anywhere here. That's what this
There's
concern
a
is.
green arrow.
Green arrow. I don't even see a green arrow.
At the very bottom, it should have like participants, polls, chat, share screen.
Oh, I find. So you know what?
Record.
I need to expand my window. I'm good to go now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's all. See this okay?
Yep.
All right. So First Choice Business Brokers. We have, let's see, this transition is going to work. That's not going to work. Give me a second. All right, there we go. All right. You guys see in the second screen? Sorry, I'm having a little technical problem here.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. The business started in Las Vegas in 1994. Currently, we have about over $8 billion in listings, 60 offices nationwide, and about 700 active business listings as of just a few days ago. And the founders are Jeff and Linda Nyman out in Vegas, and they've been doing this for about 30-some years. All right, I'm going too fast here. Okay, so basically, business brokerage simplified. A lot of people are confused about what business brokerage is. I get this all the time. They think that business brokers actually buy businesses and then sell them. I wish we had that sort of capital. We don't. But we help business owners find buyers for their businesses, or we help buyers find the right business that they may want to buy. And we do this in a variety of industries. Could be a laundromat, as you see on the right-hand side here, a pallet manufacturer, could be someone who's just got a little boutique shop in a strip mall somewhere downtown, any variety of businesses, anywhere from $10,000 all the way up to, I think we have a $55 million listing as of today. So 2020 data, this is some old data, but most of the data I'm getting ready to give you is somewhere between 0 and 3 years old. But according to the SBA, if anybody out in the audience, and if you guys want to just chime in your questions, this works much better if it's a dynamic type of business or a meeting. Just shout out an answer. But according to the SBA, how many small businesses are out there in the United States? Anybody care to venture a guess? Anyone?
I think we need to have Dan answer that one.
There you go, Dan. I'm going to put you on the spot. How many would you say? Small businesses in the United States.
Let's say 1.5 million.
No, you're I'll go ahead and give you the answer here. 30 million, almost 31 million. Quite a few, a lot more than it's counterintuitive. There's a lot more than you think. It also depends on what you consider the definition of a small business. But by many definitions, and there are several, but according to the SBA, small business is considered a business with revenues under $50 million, which to most of us, that's one heck of a large business. Anyone, let's say, what businesses in the US are considered small? Anyone want to venture to guess there?
85%.
All right, no, Gino?
Let me take you off of mute. I'd say more like 90.
You're closer, yeah, without a doubt. 99.9%, almost all of them, believe it or not. This is a lot of these facts kind of blew me away as I got into this industry. The number of people in the United States that work in small businesses, I'll just go ahead and throw that out there, almost 60 million, quite a few. Bottom line, small business in the United States is big business. It's enormous. It's the backbone of our country. It really is. So that's almost 48% of the workforce works in small business in the United States. Now that does not include the federal workforce, which would be a staggering number. Some more fun facts here. The average number of employees in a small business is about 10. That's the average for small businesses that register at least one employee. So that's a little deceiving. If you go and you pull up all businesses that are registered in the United States, there are a lot of 0 employee businesses. And that's because a lot of business owners have entities that just own real estate for tax purposes. So you have to filter those out. Out of the small business in the United States that have employees, here's the breakdown by size. Sorry, excuse me, went a little too far there. Almost 5.3 million small businesses have between 1 and 19 employees, and only 630,000 small businesses have between 20 and 500 employees. Just to give you an idea of the job creation that small businesses do versus large business, this graph on the left-hand side of your screen, and I apologize for the graph, it just did not translate well. Between 2000 and 2018, small businesses created 9.6 million new net jobs, whereas large businesses only created 5.2. A little counterintuitive, but bottom line, small businesses account for 65% of all new job creation during that period from 2000 to 2018. But like I said, small business is a big business. It's a big deal. So don't forget that. If you're a small business owner, you're the backbone of this country and you should be proud of it. So small business owners are, I just said, what you do matters, and what you create has value, and it matters, and that value is worth money. So I think we've talked about Milello's a few times in Hamilton. They've shut down and didn't sell to anyone. All businesses, and most business brokers will probably affirm what I'm telling you, is most businesses, a business broker can find somewhere around $50,000 in value in the average business, even if it's losing money. You've got that many assets that are worth selling. But just as a warning to business owners, and if you're a business owner thinking about selling your business, short of burying the family dog, letting go of your business can be one of the hardest things we watch business owners do. They are very attached, and many business owners have been doing this for 30, 40 years. It's their baby. They don't know how to let go. And men are worse than women about not knowing what to do once they sell their business, because it becomes their identity. So what's the role of a business broker in all of this? A business broker is someone that you use in order to sell your business, and you do it confidentially. It is almost virtually impossible for a business owner to sell their business to a third party and maintain their confidentiality through the initial part of the process, and get an owner or a buyer to sign a non-disclosure agreement and not spill the beans that their business is for sale. The other thing that a business broker enables a business owner to do is you can continue to run your business while the broker markets and sells your business for you. I can tell you that most business owners that I've dealt with, that we worked with through the closing and through the due diligence process, will tell you that it's already difficult enough trying to sell a business using a broker and run their own business. But I cannot imagine what it's like trying to run your own business and do the job of the broker, providing all the information that the banks want, that attorneys want, in order to get to closing on a, say, a $3 or $4 million business. Not going to happen very likely. You also have an intermediary that can do the ugly side work that you don't have time to do. You do have that third party representing you that is experienced with business sales. They're informed and they're educators. They educate not only you, the business owner, but they're educating the buyer so that people are making informed decisions and they're rational in their expectations. And you have a little less unemotional representative who is representing you in the face of a buyer, in the face of attorneys, and sometimes those can be adverse discussions as it relates to buying a business, because even buyers get emotional in this process because you're talking big bucks. And at the end of the day, the business brokers, more times than not, they earn their fee by being the glue that holds the deal together. So a lot of deals fall apart for all the right reasons, but you certainly don't want a deal to fall apart because you're too emotional and the other person's too emotional, which happens far too often. So should you sell your business? Just a few key determinants here. Burnout. If you're, the flame's gone, you kind of dread each day. You're looking, you're actually calling off on yourself. Your family's kind of fed up with your mood swings. It's time to leave. If you're older than 65, maybe you've got your retirement plans fully funded. Selling your business is not really going to make or break you. At that age, 65 and older, this is something we often see in the business brokerage industry. You've slowed down both mentally, and your ambitions are a little less than they used to be. You can actually start to hurt your business at that age and over. And that's why as a business brokerage, we tend to look for business owners that are in their mid 60s to early 70s that haven't yet retired or hung up the spurs, because they're great candidates for selling their business. And as you'll see as we go through the slides, there are a lot of people that meet that definition in that category here lately with the baby boom generation. So kind of bored, it's time to move on. You need to sell. This is one category that happens quite often. You're either moving out of town, maybe the other half of the partnership or marriage has someone who's the real breadwinner, and the business that you own is really just kind of some extra bread on the table. So it's not really the crux of your income, medical or other financial demands. We have a few businesses that are for sale right now where the owner's health is the reason that they're selling. There's a multitude of reasons, and a lot of times you see these businesses that need to sell within a year, and they have, we have one business right now that they need to sell within 3 months because they're retiring and moving to Florida. And they just said, Brandon, try and sell it if you can. If not, no big deal, they'll shut it down. Preparing for your exit, it's not easy, guys. Emotions kind of get in the way. Again, we go back to the owner. Your business is your baby. And a lot of business owners, we hear this, that it's not the money that they're looking for. They actually want to sell it to the right person that will take care of their employees. That's a very common theme that we hear, and it's very admirable. You really need to understand what you want and desire if you're at that, retirement age and you're ready to sell your business, because if you can't picture what you're going to do the day after you're selling, you don't have a clear picture of what that is, we might be in trouble. And you might do what's called the seller two-step, which is we walk you all the way down the aisle. You're ready to exchange vows with the buyer, and you balk and you pull chalks, and a lot of people get upset, and a lot of time and money and effort is wasted putting a deal together that doesn't go through. So planning puts you in control of the exit. We'll talk a lot more about this here in a few slides, but waiting until it's too late, that leaves everyone else but you in control. If you fail to plan, 2 to 3 years before you actually exit, you're going to give a lot of money away to the tax man. You're going to give a lot of money away potentially to a buyer because you don't have your your business position to gather the most amount of money for its sale at exit. You may be a C Corp and you should have been an S Corp for tax reasons. I'll talk about that here in a few slides. So planning also helps you preserve another important resource, and that's the employees. And I mentioned that earlier, that business owners really do want to take care of their employees more than they want to take care of themselves at the time when they're, in their late 60s and early 70s. It becomes very paramount to them. So planning helps maximize the value of your business when you sell. And you can avoid tax hits if you, for instance, you're talking to your accountant 3 or 4 years before you actually sell and you're a C Corp. This is a great example. A C Corp has the double taxation penalty that if you sell, you actually have to sell that as a stock sale. And we won't go into all the details of what's a stock sale versus an asset sale. Let's just put it this way. A stock sale is something that most buyers don't want to do because they have to take on all your liabilities. They get all your assets, but they have to take on all your liabilities, and most of them will balk at that. And their attorneys will tell them, don't do it. If you transition to an S Corp, you don't have that double tax penalty 2 or 3 years later, and you can sell it as an asset sale, which is something that buyers want to do. So these are things that when somebody tells you need to plan 2 to 3 years ahead of time, there's a reason for it. There's a seasoning rule in accounting and in the tax code that says you have to have been an S Corp for X amount of years before actually sell in that particular tax protected class. So planning also helps you ensure the longevity of the business for future generations, which is probably more important to most business owners than anything else. There's a thing called the Exit Planning Institute, and if you've never heard of it, I invite you to take a look at it. Most business owners would do themselves a huge solid to reach out to anybody that's certified through the Exit Planning Institute. We're not. I'm just giving some advice here to business owners. They are about as good as they get. These are some stats from the EPI. 76% of all business owners today plan to transition in the next 10 years and sell their business. That's 4.5 million businesses, over $10 trillion in wealth. And it's largely because the baby boomer generation is still in their retirement phase. And so there's a lot of businesses out there that probably won't sell. They'll probably just shut down. Almost half of those business owners have no transition plan. And 70% of businesses put on the market don't sell. That's a very sobering thought. 30% of family-owned businesses, and this one's kind of sad. 30% of family-owned businesses transition to the second generation, and only a mere 12% survive to the third. So a lot of family-owned businesses, it's very common now for sons and daughters to not really be interested in mom and dad's business. They want to do something else. So it's just not as common. Excuse me. Sorry, folks. You guys are seeing these slides 2 and 3 times because I can't control my mouse very well. You guys can still hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Anybody? Okay, good. So just again, here, just more EPI. I'm not giving them a plug because I'm connected to them whatsoever, but they are an enormously helpful resource to business owners. And the sooner you get a hold of them, the sooner you talk to them, the better off your transition will be if you're in the market to sell your business. That was a cool transition, wasn't it? Come on. Top reason most business owners sell, by and large, retirement's number one. But this is an interesting graph because, most folks are selling their business because, they're at that age, they're ready to retire. Number 2 and 3, somewhere between, they're pursuing something different or they're burnout. And as you can see, family issues and other issues come in distant 4th, 5th, and 6th. How much planning is really going on? What this chart tells you from left to right is the smaller the business in revenue, the less planning there is going on. Blue is the amount of no planning. So, over 80% of businesses in the 500,000 income category and under just don't plan their exit at all. And ironically, most businesses in the United States sell for about $350,000. So that's, the majority of all businesses in the United States just don't plan. And it hurts. What's selling lately? The ones that we see the most, personal services and restaurants. Restaurants just have a high burnout rate. You have to work 8 hours a week or 8 days a week in a restaurant, not 7. I don't know where they found that 8th day, but restaurants have a tendency to just hijack the owner's life. And we see restaurants transition from one owner to the next in less than, a year and a half. They'll just, that's about how long they last. And the average restaurant turnover is actually 3 years, which is, makes your head spin when you think about it. How long to sell your business? This graph simply tells you the smaller your business, the sooner it can, the less time that it takes to sell. So for instance, in 2022, the average small business in that same category from the last slide sells in about 6 months from the moment you list it to the moment you actually close. The larger businesses up here, this 10-month category is that $5 million to $50 million category, what we call middle market. Just because there's moving parts, they're a little more sophisticated. It takes a little longer to vet the numbers, et cetera. Just one takeaway from this slide, 73% of all businesses sold are going to be sold to either a first-time individual or an individual who has already owned a business. So it's an individual that's likely to buy your business. A private equity group, if that's what you're waiting for, if you're sitting in your business waiting for that private equity group to come in there and make you rich, you got a 1 in 4 chance of that happening. So what's your business worth? That's the number one question that always comes up when we're talking to business owners. Within probably for the first 5 minutes of a conversation, they want to know what their business is worth. And one of the reasons that at First Choice we offer business valuation free of charge is because that's what most business owners are interested in, but common misconceptions about the value of a business. Some business owners think that whatever it costs to build the business is what it's worth. That's just not true. What they need to retire, that's wishful thinking, but that's not true either. And what they paid for it 10 years ago, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Well, I paid $5 million for this 10 years ago. It's got to be worth at least that much. That's not true at all. No, the other myth that it sort of irritates me, but I'm amused at how often I hear it. There's a lot of locker room lawyers out there that whisper in business owners' ears, and other business owners don't help each other very much, but they all say, well, my company's worth 5 times multiple. And then when I inquire and ask them what multiple that is, the answer that I get is, the multiple. What multiple is that? There are several multiples that we use. There's an EBITDA multiple, cash flow multiple, there's a revenue multiple. Most owners are typically referring to what they call the cash flow multiple. And I'll tell you right now that number is nationally about between 2.3 and 2.5. And it's fairly accurate that you can take your cash flow off a business and multiply it by about 2.5. And that's about the value of your business, plus or minus. But your business is only worth some factor of the income that it produces. And this is something that most business owners have a hard time getting through their heads. That's it. I don't care how many heavy assets you have. You could have 20 machines that produce siding in your company. And if only 10 of those machines are producing siding, the other 5 are worth whatever you can sell them for on the open market. An owner is not going to pay you for idle equipment. So again, most business sales in the United States, they average around $350,000. Any questions at this point, folks? Anybody? I can't see you. You can see me, hopefully, but just chime in. I don't care if you interrupt me at all. A business valuation. Here's kind of the myth buster is doing one of these. And this is just an example of a business valuation that we did not long ago. It was a fairly healthy business, had great margin, but we take the information from the owner, last 3 years of their earnings. We run them through this algorithm and we run our multiples. Our multiples are right up here: revenue multiple, EBITDA multiple, and what's called SDE, which is fancy word for cash flow multiple. We run some math and it kind of spits out a high and a low range for the business owner to look at. This is about what we think that business should sell, between not lower than this, but probably not higher than that. And then we go from there.
Brandon, it's Gino. I have a quick question.
Shoot.
As you know, let me see, how can I say this in the most politically correct way? Not all businesses are going to tell you the truth as far as what they're worth, what they brought in, their revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So do you pull reports? Do they have to give you something in writing that you can see exactly what their revenue is, like the last couple of years of tax returns or whatever?
Yeah, so like if you can't, you can't see it very well, but in this particular instance, this is the last 3 years. And this is the last 3 years of their gross revenue, their cost of goods sold, and their operating expenses. We get that from their profit and loss statements, and we get it from their last 3 years of taxes.
Outstanding, because like I said, not everybody's going to be forthcoming, and
Oh,
they're going to always say something. Okay, got it.
And even then, Gino, to be fair, a business broker does not, we're not vetting these numbers. We're not an accountant, and we're not going in and doing a deep dive into their business. That's what the due diligence process is for, that the buyer will conduct after they make an offer. They will use their accountant and they'll take a forensic dive into those numbers and vet them for themselves to find out whether or not these numbers are accurate. And they will also do their own competing valuation to make sure that our valuation is synonymous with theirs. If it's not, then of course they will lower their price. They'll never raise their price if they found out it's worth more, but they will lower their price if they find out it's worth less. And our valuations are typically plus or minus 5% from what the banks come back and find out that they're worth. Sometimes a business owner will come to a broker and say, Brandon, I see that you're telling me it's worth $2.7 million, but I want to sell it for 3.1. Can you put it out there for us at 3.1 and see if we can't capture that? In many cases, we'll say absolutely. If I think that there's no way we're going to sell it for that, I may not take the listing over that, but that happens. So there's a little bit of fluff in that number. I hope that helps. I hope that answer helps you, Gino. What business owners can really expect if you sell your business? Here's what you can really expect. Most deals are financed. If you don't like a banker, you're gonna hate the process, but you need to learn to love them, because they're the ones who are going to be cutting most of the business, or the check and the cash that you get at closing. Most finance deals in Main Street and the middle market deals are through SBA loans. 75% of the deals we did last year were financed, and I believe at least maybe most of those were SBA loans. I'm almost positive all of them were SBA loans. So SBA, those guidelines are tough, they're intrusive, and as a business owner, you'll pull your hair out toward the end, because they'll ask the same question 3 and 4 times. But they're also a 75% government guarantee that if it defaults, the government will pick up, the pieces and repay the lender. So there's a reason that it's stringent, because the guarantee is so high. If you're a business owner and you're selling your business, you should expect to carry some sort of seller carry note. Seller carry note means that you're financing part of the deal. Just to give you an example, if you're selling your business for $1 million, it's not unlikely that $100,000 of that is financed as a seller carry note, meaning you're going to be paid that separately by the buyer over a term of 2 to 3 years, and you'll get some interest on it. But we see that in over half the deals that we do, especially SBA loans. SBA lenders love to see the previous owner have some skin in the game. It's a little bit of a guarantee that if the buyer is having trouble 6 months into after buying the business, that if they call the previous owner and say, hey, I don't understand this, I'm in trouble, that previous owner is more likely than not that they're going to help them and assist in some way, because they've got some skin in the game, or some skin left in the game. You're going to need legal and accounting expertise at close. I don't care how small your business is. If you're a business owner and you're selling your business, you should have an attorney look over all of those documents that you're getting ready to sign. You should have an accountant consider your tax consequences of the sale and make sure that you're positioned properly, so that you don't pay any more taxes than you have to. And lastly, an earnout. If you are the business, and for instance, you're a plumber and you've got one assistant and you're selling your company, there's probably going to be an earnout in that business. And an earnout is nothing more than holding back some of the cash proceeds of the business for a period of time, to make sure that the business doesn't evaporate after you leave. How much time? How are we doing on time, Laura? Good? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're plenty good on time.
Okay, should you buy a business? So for those of you that are considering buying a business, this can be anybody that's just sick and tired of working for someone else, anybody that owns a business and wants to add to their portfolio. Sorry, I keep going backwards. So just a few questions to ask. Are you ready? How much income do you need? Do you have the stomach for it? A lot of folks think that they do have the stomach to be a business owner. They just don't. They're just not made for it. And what type of business? I see far too many business buyers that call up and they don't care what business it is, just as long as the numbers are good. That is typically the worst kind of buyer we can run into because they really don't have a clue what they're qualified for. So a good self-assessment is helpful if you're thinking about buying a business. And that would include, why do you really want to own a business? Do you really understand what that reason is? Is it ego? Is it income? Is it just because you can't stand your boss? Maybe a job change would be a better bet than actually buying a business. What do you really like to do? I mean, if you've never worked in a restaurant and you come from manufacturing, I really doubt you're going to like working in a restaurant. A restaurant, somebody who works in a restaurant may think that working in a restaurant's awful and they want to be in construction, and until they get outside and it's 20 degrees below, they find out that they don't like doing that, and that restaurant sounds so much better, especially if they're standing next to a nice hot oven. Can you handle the hours? Can you handle the constant commitment? Because owning a business is a 24/7 occupation. I can tell you that from sitting in this chair right now. It just never ends. And be sure to include your family in the assessment. You don't want to buy a business, but you get a divorce. That's just not a good trade-off. Your financial needs, another one. I love this little thing on the right-hand side. It says, I'm just one step away from being rich. All I need now is money. Determine what you need to make. Net, not gross. A lot of folks look at the top line, and we brokers are guilty of doing this. I'll be the first to admit it. When we put an ad out there for a business, the thing that a big banner at the top, this thing makes $1 million a year in revenue. And then suddenly when it comes to net, we don't say too much about it because maybe the net's not that good, but you need to drill down and understand that a business's gross is not what you take home. There's a net income line that you need to know, and you need to know that well, and you probably need to understand this. Your net income is going to be a lot less than what that person's showing you because you're going to have a payment for the next 10 years, and it can be in the tens of thousands of dollars for certain business sizes. So it matters what you take home. Be realistic. Lose those rose-colored glasses. You're going to go buy a little pizzeria franchise that's making $250,000 a year bottom line. And you think, heck yeah, I'll be bringing home $20,000 a month. I'm able to buy this, buy that. You probably won't have the time to buy a lot of that because restaurants have a tendency to suck up most of your time. Ask questions. Talk to other business owners about their experiences. Talk to your chamber of commerce, and ask those business owners. They'll tell you. They'll be glad to give you an earful if you ask. And talk to your financial advisor and your accountant. Let them help you figure out whether or not you're in a position to actually afford to buy one, and you've got the income to do it. So a few things you'll have to do. If you're wanting to buy a business, you're going to have to prepare a financial statement. You're going to have to you have to know what your net worth is. If you don't know that answer, you've got the cart before the horse. You need to figure that out first. What's your net worth? Do you actually have the wherewithal to buy a business? To give you an example, as a business buyer, even if you went the SBA route, you still have to come up with 10% down for the cost of that business. So let's say it's a $1 million business you want to buy. You're going to have $100,000 in the bank, and the SBA is likely going to want you to have another $100,000 in working capital. So if you don't have $200,000 in the bank, meaning you got your 10% deposit and you got your $100,000 working capital, you're going to have to borrow that $100,000 from the SBA in addition to the other $1 million. So they're going to essentially make you borrow the full million. You're going to be paying interest on that over 10 years, which is fairly expensive. So you will have to have a financial statement ahead of time. We'll skip all the rest of that. Oh, it won't. Identify all your income assets. Find out what assets you can leverage. And here's something a lot of business buyers don't understand. Your home equity can be used, cash, of course, but your 401k and your IRA, you can actually roll those over into a C corporation to buy the business assets tax-free. And this is something that we can talk about later. You can call and I can refer you to folks that do this for a living. But it's actually a great way for you to get into buying a business without pulling hard-earned cash out of the bank and use your retirement plan to actually buy the assets for you. And also, most sellers or brokers are going to want to see your financial statements. One of the first questions I ask a business buyer when they call and ask about a business that I have listed for sale is, how much cash do you have in the bank? How much liquid assets do you have? If the answer is I've only got $10,000 and they're looking at $1 million business, that becomes a very short phone call for me. All right, you're gonna have to update your resume. This is very common. I'm as a broker, you're calling about I don't know, let's say it's a tool rental place, and you're coming from the restaurant industry. I'm just going to want to know that what about your resume makes you fit, buying this particular business. I see a lot of cross-pollination when it comes to buyers and businesses, and that's common and that's okay. But if you've got a strong management background, you run some businesses at the P&L line, you can probably cross over from restaurant to a hair salon or vice versa. But it's going to be difficult if you've not had any of that experience in your background. So I'm sure that's exactly what you wanted to do, was prepare a resume. I know I hate it. I haven't done it in a long time, but you will have to do that. Hang on, guys, I have a little trouble here. All right, step 5, determine your prospects. What do you want to be when you grow up? That's important. If you don't know the answer to that when you're starting to look for a business, you're just going to kick a lot of tires and waste a lot of your time and other people's time. So get an idea of what you want, narrow that down to 2 or 3 types of businesses, and then talk to several different brokers, because not one singular broker has access to all the businesses out there for sale. There are about 4,000 business brokers in the United States, and in Ohio, I think there's a little over 100. You probably need to talk to the ones down here in Southwest Ohio and make sure you stay on their radar, because if you're not top of mind, they're not going to think about you when a new listing comes up. Things to consider: what industry, what's the growth potential? Like, for instance, you don't want to, back during the pandemic, a trampoline park was the worst thing in the world to own or buy. A restaurant was probably number 2. And then your lifestyle considerations. If you don't like working weekends, don't buy a restaurant. If you don't like working long hours, I don't know, there's all sorts of industries out there you should probably avoid. If you don't like working, standing for long periods, a hair salon would be out of the question. And last but not least, do your homework. Use your resources and ask for help. Talk to these folks. They know business owners. I'll give you an example of who we're talking about: attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, bankers, intermediaries like myself, realtors like myself. I'm also a commercial realtor, but especially commercial real estate agents. They are people that know businesses, they know business owners, and they can help put you in touch. And just a note about business brokers: we're paid by the seller. But we, use us free of charge when you're looking for a business to buy, because we're a great asset and we're great educators. But because we'll keep this in mind, we are paid by the seller, that we represent the seller and their interests. So you should seek legal counsel to represent you as a buyer in any transaction. And we know the market, and we often know about businesses that are going to be coming up for sale before we actually list them. I'll give you an example, but one of the largest businesses we sold last year, we sold to an individual I spoke to long before I actually listed the business. I knew who I was going to call before I even listed that business, and he was talking to me in advance. So he bought a nice business for $3 million that makes almost $900,000 a year in income. And if you or someone wants to sell or wants to buy, call us. There's our contact information. That's it. Any questions?
I have a question, if you can understand me. You said 70% of businesses don't sell. Why is that?
A lot of them just shut down because business owners don't think that they have a market, or don't know. They don't even know that there's a business broker out there that can help them. Some of them just wait until it's just too darn late. They have run the thing into the ground. They're losing money. They thought they were going to pull out of the nosedive, and they don't even try to sell it. They think that they can't, that it's just damaged goods. So they just sell off their assets to whomever. And then some of them are just not desirable. I think our win rate, I think I just calculated the other day, is a little over 70% of the businesses that we list, we sell. But we've also gotten a little pickier here lately. I won't take the too many distressed businesses. After the pandemic, there were a lot of distressed restaurants out there that they didn't have any income. They had negative income. So you were essentially selling assets, and the juice becomes not really necessarily worth the squeeze. We can't take on too many of those. We can, as a brokerage, I can take on, maybe 5 to 10% of our listings be a distressed listing, because you can spend a lot of time on those, but you don't want a portfolio full of those. So it becomes difficult to sell those businesses after a while. And then some of them, like I said, they just die a natural death. And that's the sad part, is that the owners aren't aware that there are resources out there. There's planning and there's brokers that can help them sell their assets.
Brandon, I think that's one of the reasons as a chamber, we really wanted you to be on here today, so that we don't have people who are just walking away from their businesses when they don't need to. But I do have a question. What is, I think you said some people start 3 years ahead, and what would you recommend if a business owner thinks that someday they want to sell their business? When is, what is too far out? Is 10 years too much?
No, I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever say you should start thinking about selling. Most books that you read on this subject will tell you, you start thinking about selling the moment you buy that business. And the reason you're doing that is you're always packaging and positioning that business for sale. And if you do that as an entrepreneur, you'll always be in a good position. At a minimum, my personal belief is 5 years. That way you're giving yourself, not only are you tactically giving your financial planners, your accountants, and your lawyers a chance to get ahead of it, you're emotionally preparing yourself for it. It sounds silly, but that is probably the biggest hurdle we run into. Nikki will tell you that we had a deal blow up. It was a $4 million deal. I had the guy all the way at the altar. We were in the middle of exchanging vows, and the seller balked. The seller just backed out. He was emotionally not as prepared for it as he thought he was. And, I could go into all the ugly details of it. We probably could have gone to court and exacted a fee from him. But at the end of the day, it was ugly. But I called the seller two-step. That person, didn't do the planning, the emotional planning ahead of time. And I think that's important for business owners.
So Brandon, you're saying that sellers and buyers both need to be doing some preparation before we're doing all these things, not just, I love to cook. I want to buy a restaurant.
Yeah, buying, it's funny. There's a lot of folks out there that, we call them tire kickers. They call up, and I say I probably have to talk to 99 people to get one qualified buyer. Maybe not. Maybe it's not that bad. It's more like, 20 people I got to talk to find one qualified buyer. But of the 20 people that I speak to, good Lord, I'd say 75% of those people have no business talking to me whatsoever. They don't have the cash, they don't have the knowledge, and they think they're ready. And what they're doing is, they're seasoning themselves. They're talking to one broker after another. And after 2 or 3 years of kicking tires, they may be ready, because they're going to get pushback from people like me saying, you don't have enough cash to buy this business, or they're going to talk to a bank, and the bank's going to tell them the same thing. So preparation is key. But, I can't diminish or disparage the buyer, because I want the buyers to keep trying. The more they speak to brokers, the better they'll be, and the better informed they'll be. And they'll get the good advice that they need, the hard truth sometimes.
So it's always a good idea for the seller or the buyer to be going out and getting a business plan and, doing all their financial due diligence in the background, because
Oh yeah, it is.
if you don't know what your plan is, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And we're all human beings, and we all want to hope for the best, right? There's a lot of us that don't want to do a net worth calculation. We're afraid of the answer, so we don't. You kind of kick that can down the road, and you'll pick up the phone and call a broker and say, yeah, I want to know more about this business. And then the broker says, well, what's your net worth? I'm like, I'll get back to you on that. Knowing that ahead of time and just bellying up to that bar, staring yourself in the mirror and saying, am I ready? And you'll find out the cold hard truth that you're not, or that you are. And if the answer is you are, then hey, give us a call.
So Brandon, I have a question. First of all, I'm going to make a statement. We have a lot of times people will come in as an entrepreneur and they want to have their own business. And, they say things like, I'll say, why do you want to have your own business? Well, I want to be my own boss. I'm like, well, that's not a good reason to buy your own business, because when you buy a business, your customers are your new boss. So, they go into that expectation. They don't realize it is a 24/7 commitment. It's no longer a job, it's your life. We've had small business say things like, I haven't had a day off in like 3 months. And I'm kind of like, and your point is, so they're always kind of taken aback by that. But, my question is, for somebody who wants to start a business, it sounds to me like the process, is going to be very similar to somebody who wants to buy a business.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to really go through the same things in addition to a business plan. All that other stuff comes into play, your ability to actually get that business up and running. And, I think another key thing that you covered was, operating capital. A lot of people think about, they have all the money to get the business up and running, and they think that from day one, they're going to, be doing $1,000 a day. And when they only do 500, then they're in trouble. So would you agree that starting a business from scratch is very similar to buying a business?
No, and I'll tell you what,
Okay.
I'll part company with you in one particular regard. Okay. And this is something business brokers preach. You buy an existing business, the hard part is done. The hardest part of starting a business is done. And that's that first scary year or two at the beginning. So the advantage to buying an existing business, and more so with a franchise, because you have a lot of support with franchises, right? If I was skittish and I was going to start a business, I would be less skittish about starting a franchise, because I've got this whole team behind me called franchisor. It's going to support me in that regard, whether it be a Subway, a McDonald's, or you name it. Starting a non-franchise business from scratch, there is a lot of risk. And as you know, the data says, what is I can't remember the number, how many businesses fail in the first 5 years. I think it's a very high percentage number. Existing businesses, especially ones that are older than 5 years, have an established track record. And if they've been profitable for 5 years or more, your chances of success as a business buyer are much better than if you tried to start that same business from scratch. I'm not saying that you can't start a business from scratch, but business brokers, that's not our specialty. It's not something that we coach. So I can only tell you that, there's a little bit more safety in buying an established business. However, the real rewards go to the people that start the business from scratch. The people that really have that, the intestinal fortitude to do that. They're the ones that can take a buck and turn it into several million, because the percentage reward is much greater in that regard. So I would think the process is going to be the same. You're going to talk to a bank. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to need funding. You're going to need all the other things we just talked about when it comes to buying an actual business. That business plan is going to be critical, and the bank won't fund it unless they think it will cash flow. So your processes are going to be the same. But I believe that buying an existing business is a little more safety for the average Joe. I know that's probably not what you want to hear being, Chamber of Commerce, but there's a nugget of truth in what I'm saying.
But they still have to go through that personal financial journey.
Yeah, they're going to go through all that. Everything's going to be the same, with the exception of just your risk. When you first start out, you have zero income. And that's the difference between an existing business. You're walking into some income, assuming there is some there, right? With starting up a business, you're bleeding cash right out of the gate. So for the first 6 months, if you're profitable, that'd be a miracle. But you're looking to be profitable inside of a 6 to 12 month horizon. And a lot of businesses do. There's a lot of nice surprises, out there right now. Especially that business in pet, anything related to pet, they're hitting it out of the park. So getting into the right business matters, of course, and then making sure there's good demand out there, but you're going to hit the same check marks. You're going to have to have a good portfolio. You're going to have some capital, the right experience, a good resume. You're going to talk to a bank for funding, and then you've got to execute. And you're going to need all those same people: a lawyer, a CPA, good wealth planner, good contacts and networking groups just like this. The Chamber of Commerce is going to be critical in getting something like that up off the ground.
Brandon, I've got to jump off and get on another call, but this is outstanding. This is the kind of information I think every business owner needs to hear. And hopefully we'll get you on some other programs like this, because I can't emphasize how many businesses I've ran across that just didn't prepare and they failed because they didn't prepare. So, I just want to say great job. Appreciate you. And I just need to jump off.
Thanks, Gino. I appreciate it. You have a great one.
You got it. Have a good day, guys.
You as well.
All right. Any more questions for Brandon? All right.
Question, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
Just to go back to what Gino just said about businesses being prepared. There have been times where we've also run into businesses who they are prepared. They've done all of their work up front. They're ready to sell. We bring a full price offer, and then the due diligence period can take several months. So the business owner in a couple of cases, they get their full price offer. They're going through due diligence and they completely let off the throttle. And then when it's time and the bank requests a second round of financial statements for the buyer, now their financial statements do not support the full price offer. So we've had a couple businesses not sell at all because they completely let go of their plan as soon as they get an offer.
Right.
So it's really important when you do get your offer and you're selling, just to keep on running your business like you're not doing anything different. And that's all. I just wanted to say that with what Gina was just saying about making a plan. You need to stick with it through the entire process.
Right. Yeah. Like we always tell business owners, pretend you're not selling your business at all. And then you're going to run your business in perpetuity, and that this deal is going to fall apart. And if you do that there at the very end, you won't ruin the deal. We did have two businesses actually just lose the deal because they let off the throttle.
I think that's a really good point. So
thanks for having us. I do appreciate it.
I think this has been, I echo Gino's comments. This has been beyond excellent. And, I think this is a topic that all businesses and entrepreneurs and potential business owners need to hear. So, we are going to put this out on our blog and link to our to this presentation on our e-newsletter. So, because I think this is really, really important topic. That's why we wanted you to come here today. And you guys certainly nailed it, I will have to say. So we want to thank you.
Good. All right, great. Glad to hear that. Perfect. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. And Sandy, Natalie, thanks for attending.
Yep, thank you very much. It's definitely been very informative. We'll be back in a couple of weeks on April 11th for our next Coffee and Conversations. So if you're interested in that, please sign up. We will be having some more information. All of our Coffee and Conversations are Facebook Live, and so you can find them on our Facebook page, and we also have them on our YouTube channel. So check those out. If you've got any questions, feel free to contact Brandon or Nikki, and they can help you out with any questions you've got. So we will see you all in a couple of weeks then.
See you guys. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.